The text came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my desk. "Hey Sarah, really sorry but we're keeping the birthday party small this year. Just immediate family. You understand, right?" I stared at the message from my sister Jennifer for a long moment. Her birthday celebration was in 3 days. For the past 8 years since she'd had her first child, I'd never missed one of these gatherings. I'd driven through snowstorms, rearranged business trips, and once even left a conference early just to make it to her celebrations. This year I'd gone even further. I'd spent 3 weekends shopping for presents. My daughter Emma had helped me pick out the professional art supplies for Jennifer's oldest daughter, who loved to draw. We'd spent an hour in the art store comparing brush sets and testing different paper textures. My son Michael had insisted on the expensive building set for her youngest son, the one he'd seen advertised during his favorite shows. Together, the gifts had cost nearly $2,000, but watching my kids carefully choose presents for their cousins had been worth every penny. I'd already wrapped everything in their favorite colors, adding handwritten notes from Emma and Michael, and cleared my entire weekend schedule. I'd even arranged for my husband to handle our kids' soccer games so I could help Jennifer set up for the party like I did every year. Of course, I typed back, "Have a great time." Jennifer's response came instantly. "Thanks for understanding. It's just too complicated with the house being small and everything." I knew her house. 4 bedrooms, 3,000 square feet in the suburbs, with a dining room specifically designed for entertaining. The same house where she'd hosted 30 people for her last birthday, plus a bounce house in the backyard for the kids. The same house where I'd helped her paint the accent wall last summer. The same house where my children had sleepovers with their cousins at least once a month. But I simply replied with a thumbs-up emoji and went back to work. I told myself maybe she really was keeping it small this year. Maybe she needed a quiet celebration. I could respect that even if it stung a little. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Jennifer had posted a photo. I opened it and felt my stomach tighten. The sick feeling you get when you realize someone has lied directly to your face. The image showed her dining room table extended to its full length with place settings for at least 15 people. Cloth napkins folded into decorative shapes. Her good china. Crystal wine glasses. The full formal setup she only used for big celebrations. The caption read, "So excited for my birthday dinner this weekend. Grateful for amazing friends and family." I scrolled through the comments. Her college roommate Ashley was coming. Her neighbor Brittany. Her husband's co-workers. People I'd never even met were tagged, confirming their attendance. But no space for me. No space for my 2 kids who called her Auntie Jen, and made her birthday cards every year. I sat in my office for 10 minutes watching the comments pile up. Jennifer responded to each one with heart emojis and exclamation points. My phone stayed silent. That evening, I drove home and looked at the pile of wrapped presents in my guest room. My daughter Emma had helped me pick out the art supplies for Jennifer's oldest. We'd spent an hour in the store with Emma carefully reading the descriptions of each brush set, wanting to make sure her cousin got exactly the right ones for watercolor painting. My son Michael had insisted on the expensive building set for her youngest, the one that cost $300 alone. He'd been so excited, telling me how much fun they'd have building it together at the next family gathering. Together, the gifts had cost nearly $2,000. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the time. The thought. The careful attention to what each child would love. I'd spent weeks planning this. Researching what each kid wanted by casually asking them during our regular phone calls. Driving to 3 different stores to find the exact items because the online versions wouldn't arrive in time. Wrapping each present carefully with Emma and Michael's help. Adding handwritten notes from both of them telling their cousins how much they loved them. Now those presents sat in my guest room, meant for children whose mother had decided we weren't worth a seat at the table. Children who probably didn't even know they'd been excluded from seeing their aunt and cousins because their mother hadn't had the decency to be honest about her reasons. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at those wrapped boxes and something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about this party. This was about respect. About being valued. About teaching my own children that they didn't have to accept being treated as disposable. I made a decision. The next morning I loaded every single present into my car, then drove to the Children's Hospital downtown, the same hospital where I served on the board of directors. I set up my phone on the dashboard and started recording a video. These presents were meant for my niece and nephew, I said to the camera, keeping my voice steady. But their mother informed me there's no space for us at her birthday celebration. So instead, these gifts are going to children who could really use them. I filmed myself carrying the wrapped boxes into the hospital's donation center. The staff recognized me immediately and helped unload everything. Box after box of carefully chosen presents, each one representing hours of thought and planning. When I finished, I sat in my car and watched the video. 3 minutes of footage showing exactly what Jennifer's decision had cost her children. I sent the video to Jennifer without any message. Just the raw footage. Then I went to work. My phone started ringing 12 minutes later. I ignored it. Jennifer called 4 more times in the next hour. I declined every call. Text messages flooded in. Sarah, what did you do? Call me right now. This is insane. You can't just give away their presents. The kids are going to be devastated. I responded only once. You said there wasn't space for us. I found children who had space for the presents. Her response came in seconds. You're being petty and vindictive. They're just kids. I typed back. Exactly. They're kids who would have loved to see their aunt and cousins. But you made a choice. My phone rang again. This time it was my mother. Sarah, Jennifer is hysterical. What happened? I explained calmly. The text saying there was no space. The Instagram post 2 hours later showing 15 place settings. The decision to donate the presents rather than give them to children whose mother had excluded us. She said the party was just getting too complicated, Mom said carefully. Then she posted photos inviting her neighbor and her husband's co-workers. People I've never met got invited. But not me. Not her niece and nephew. Mom was quiet for a moment. The kids are really upset. I'm sure they are. Maybe Jennifer should explain to them why their aunt and cousins weren't worth a seat at her birthday table. Sarah, that's harsh. What's harsh is excluding family and then expecting the presents anyway. What's harsh is making my kids feel unwanted and then acting shocked when there are consequences. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next day I got an email from my brother David. Jennifer called me crying. She wants you to get the presents back from wherever you took them. I wrote back. The Children's Hospital doesn't return donated items. Those presents are with kids who need them now. His response came quickly. She says you did this to embarrass her. I did this because I spent $2,000 and weeks of planning on presents for children whose mother decided we weren't important enough to include. She made a choice. I made a choice. That's how consequences work. Friday afternoon, Jennifer showed up at my office unannounced. My assistant Melissa buzzed me, her voice careful. Your sister is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. I could have made her wait. Could have told Melissa I was busy. But I wanted this conversation to happen on my terms, in my space where I had the power. Send her in. Jennifer walked into my office looking exhausted. Her eyes were red and puffy, her hair pulled back messily in a way she would never have allowed if she were seeing anyone else. She wore sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. She sat down across from my desk without being invited, without asking, collapsing into the leather chair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. You had no right, she said immediately, her voice shaking. I had every right. Those were my presents. I bought them with my money. I can decide where they go. You did this to hurt me. To ruin my birthday. To make me look bad in front of everyone. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice level and professional. I did this because you hurt me. You excluded my children from a family celebration, lied about your reasons, and then expected me to hand over expensive presents anyway. That's not how this works, Jennifer. The party was getting too complicated. Her voice rose, desperation creeping in. Then why did you invite 5 new people 2 hours after telling me there wasn't space? Why did your neighbor get a seat? Why did your husband's co-workers get invited? People I've never even met got to celebrate your birthday, but not your sister. Not your niece and nephew who love you. Jennifer's face flushed deep red. Those were different circumstances. Ashley is my best friend from college. Brittany just lost her job and needed cheering up. Mark's co-workers have been helping him with a big project. And what about me? What about 8 years of never missing a single one of your celebrations? What about driving through that snowstorm 3 years ago when everyone else canceled? What about staying up all night to help you prep food for your parties? Did none of that earn me a seat at your table? She didn't answer. You made a calculation, I continued. You decided we weren't worth including. So I made a calculation too. I decided children at the hospital would appreciate those presents more than kids whose mother doesn't value their family relationships. That's not fair. What's not fair is my kids asking me why Auntie Jen doesn't want them at her birthday party. What's not fair is watching you post happy photos with strangers while my children feel rejected. You don't get to create that situation and then act like you're the victim. Jennifer stood up. You've always been like this. Calculating. I've always been the person who shows up, who remembers birthdays, who buys thoughtful presents and makes time for family. And you took that for granted. You assumed I'd just accept being excluded and still hand over the gifts like nothing happened. What do you want from me? Nothing. I wanted a seat at your birthday table for me and my kids. You made it clear that wasn't available. So now you know what it costs to exclude family. She walked to the door then turned back. The kids are asking where their presents are. Tell them the truth. Tell them their mother decided not to invite their aunt and cousins to the party, so their aunt donated the presents to children who needed them. Let them learn what happens when you treat family as disposable. Jennifer left without another word. That evening I picked up Emma and Michael from school. Emma asked if we were still going to Auntie Jen's party. No, sweetie. Aunt Jennifer decided to keep the party very small this year. But we're family, Michael said, confused. I know, buddy. Sometimes people make choices we don't understand. What about the presents we picked out? I pulled into our driveway and turned to face them. Remember how we always talk about helping people who need it? Those presents went to kids at the hospital who don't have much. Kids who are sick and could really use something special. Emma thought about this. Did they like the art supplies? I bet they loved them. That's good then, Michael said quietly. But I'm still sad we can't see Auntie Jen. Me too, buddy. Me too. Saturday came and went. Jennifer's birthday party happened without us. She posted photos later that night. 15 people around her table laughing and celebrating. Not one photo included my children's faces. Sunday morning my mother called. Jennifer feels terrible about how this happened. Does she? Or does she feel terrible about losing $2,000 in presents? Sarah, that's unfair. What's unfair is watching my kids' faces when they realize they weren't wanted at a family party. What's unfair is being treated as less important than strangers. Jennifer made her priorities clear. I just responded accordingly. She wants to apologize. Then she can apologize. But the presents aren't coming back. Those kids at the hospital already have them. And honestly, I'm glad they do. At least those children will feel valued. Mom sighed heavily. This is going to affect family relationships for a long time. Jennifer affected family relationships when she excluded us. I just made sure there were consequences. Maybe next time she'll think twice before deciding family isn't worth a seat at the table. I hung up and looked out my window. Emma and Michael were playing in the backyard, laughing and chasing each other around the swing set. They deserved better than being treated as afterthoughts. They deserved better than being excluded while strangers got celebrated. And Jennifer deserved to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people as disposable and expect them to keep showing up with arms full of expensive presents. My phone buzzed with another text from Jennifer. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I typed back, maybe eventually. But not today. The presents were gone. The lesson was delivered. And my children knew that their mother wouldn't let them be treated as less than they deserved. That was worth more than any birthday party. The text message came through at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Mom's words were direct as always. Family meeting this weekend at the lake house. Adults only. Your children aren't welcome. I stared at my phone for a moment watching my two kids, Emma 6 and Lucas 4, playing with building blocks on the living room floor. They were laughing, completely unaware that their grandmother had just uninvited them from the annual family Thanksgiving gathering. Emma was carefully stacking blocks into a tower while Lucas kept trying to knock it down, both of them giggling between her protests and his mischief. This wasn't the first time my family had made their feelings clear about my children. Last Mom complained about the noise level. At Easter, Jennifer made comments about table manners. And at Mark's birthday dinner, Dad suggested I should leave the kids with a babysitter next time. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my sister Jennifer in the family group chat. Finally. A peaceful holiday without the chaos. Thanks, Mom. This is exactly what we needed. 3 thumbs-up reactions appeared immediately. Dad, Jennifer, and my brother Mark all agreed within seconds. I took a deep breath and typed a simple response. Understood. We'll make other plans. Jennifer's reply came instantly. Don't be dramatic, Sarah. You can still come. Just find a babysitter for once. The lake house. They had no idea. 5 years ago, when I was working 2 jobs and finishing my MBA, I scrimped and saved every dollar. My day job was in corporate finance and my evening job was consulting for small businesses on the side. While my family thought I was struggling, barely making ends meet, I was actually building something. I'd started a small property investment company, buying distressed vacation rentals and renovating them. The lake house they loved so much, the one they'd been renting for family gatherings for the past 3 years, was my first major acquisition. I bought it at auction for $340,000, invested another $80,000 into renovations, and listed it through a property management company under my LLC's name. They'd been paying me $4,500 per weekend, completely unaware. I'd never told them. There was something satisfying about watching them enjoy the property, compliment the upgrades I'd personally selected, and never once suspect their struggling single mom daughter owned it. Jennifer had raved about the kitchen backsplash. I'd chosen every tile. Dad praised the new deck furniture. I spent weeks finding the perfect weather-resistant set. Mom loved the master bedroom's paint color. I tested 12 different shades before choosing that exact soft blue. The property management company Lakeside Rentals handled everything. Tom, my property manager, was professional and discreet. He collected payments, handled maintenance, and never mentioned to clients that he worked directly for me. To my family, it was just another vacation rental. To me, it was proof I'd built something real while they dismissed my ambitions. But now, as I looked at my children playing innocently on the floor, something shifted. I opened my laptop and pulled up the property management portal. The family had already booked the lake house for Thanksgiving weekend. Wednesday through Sunday, $12,000 total. The reservation was under Dad's name, confirmed and paid in full. I sent a message to my property manager, Tom. Hi Tom, regarding the booking for November 22nd to 26th under James Morrison. I need to make some changes. Can you call me tomorrow? Then I closed my laptop and went to play blocks with my kids. The next morning, Tom called at 8:30 a.m. Morning, Sarah. Got your message. What changes do you need for the Morrison booking? I need you to call the client today, I said calmly. Inform them that the property owner needs to use the house that weekend for personal reasons. Offer a full refund plus a $2,000 credit toward a future stay. There was a pause. That's unusual. This is a holiday weekend booking. They're going to be upset. I understand. But it's my property and I need it that weekend. All right, Tom said slowly. Just to confirm, you want me to cancel the Morrison reservation and cite owner personal use? Correct. Please make the call today. Will do. I'll let you know how it goes. I went about my day, dropped the kids at school, handled some work calls, meal prepped for the week. My phone stayed quiet until 2:17 p.m. Then it exploded. Dad called first. I let it go to voicemail. Jennifer texted, "What did you do?" Mom called. Voicemail. Mark texted, "Sarah, did you complain to the rental company? What is your problem?" I was picking up Emma and Lucas from school when the voicemails started piling up. Dad's message was angry. "Sarah, the lake house just canceled our reservation. They said the owner needs it for personal use. This is ridiculous timing. If you called and complained about the kids not being invited, this is incredibly immature. Call me back immediately." Mom's voicemail was colder. "I don't know what you said to the rental company, but this is petty and childish. We've been booking this house for years. Now we have no Thanksgiving plans because of you. Your sister is extremely upset. Mark's wife already bought groceries for the trip. This affects everyone, Sarah. I raced you better than this." Jennifer left her own message, her voice dripping with condescension. "Wow, Sarah. Really? You're going to ruin everyone's Thanksgiving because we asked you to get a babysitter for one weekend? This is exactly why we can't include you in adult events. You're so dramatic and vindictive. The kids learn this behavior from you, you know. Maybe if you were more mature, we wouldn't have to exclude them." I pulled into my driveway, helped the kids out of their car seats, and checked the family group chat. Jennifer had written a long message. I can't believe Sarah would sabotage our family holiday like this. She clearly called the rental company and made up some story to get our reservation canceled. This is a new low even for her. We try to have one peaceful holiday without her wild kids destroying everything, and she punishes all of us. Mark replied, agree. This is insane. Sarah, you need to fix this. I unbuckled Lucas from his booster seat and smiled. Hey buddy, how was school? Good. We made turkeys with our handprints. That's wonderful. Let's go inside and you can show me. After getting the kids settled with snacks, I sat down at my kitchen table and made a call. Tom, it's Sarah. Did you speak with the Morrisons? I did. It didn't go well. The father was extremely angry. He demanded to speak with the owner directly. I explained that's not our policy, but he insisted. He said his family has been loyal customers and that this cancellation is unacceptable. He even threatened to leave bad reviews on every platform we use. What did you tell him? I stuck to the script. Owner needs the property for personal use, full refund plus credit. He asked for the owner's contact information. I obviously didn't provide it. Then he tried a different approach, offering to pay double the rate if we'd reconsider. When I said no, he got really aggressive. Asked if I knew who he was, said he had connections in the hospitality industry. It was uncomfortable. I took a breath. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Did he say anything else? He mentioned something about his daughter being unreasonable and that this was probably her fault somehow. I didn't engage with that. Just kept repeating the policy. Perfect. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate you handling this professionally. Sarah, can I ask, is this family situation related? The way he was talking, it sounded personal. It is. But don't worry, everything's fine. I appreciate you handling it professionally. Tom was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, in 3 years of managing your property, they've never been difficult clients until today. But the way he spoke to me just now. I don't blame you for whatever decision you're making. After I hung up, I opened my phone and pulled up the property management company's email to my parents. It was professional and polite, explaining the cancellation and refund process. Then I opened a separate folder on my phone, the one where I kept all my property documents. I found the Lake House file. Purchase agreement, renovation receipts, LLC registration, property management contract. Everything with my name on it. I scrolled through the documents. The original auction purchase from November 2019. The $80,000 in renovation invoices. New roof, updated electrical, the kitchen remodel, bathroom upgrades, new dock, landscaping. The property insurance policy listing me as the owner. 3 years of rental income statements showing consistent bookings. The property tax payments, all made from my business account. I took a screenshot of the property deed. Right there, clear as day. Owner: Sarah Morrison, Morrison Property Holdings LLC. Date of purchase: November 12, 2019. Then I took screenshots of several rental payment confirmations from my family. November 2022, $4,500. March 2023, $4,500. July 2023, $4,500. September 2023, $4,500. And the most recent one, the Thanksgiving booking they just made in October. $12,000 for the extended holiday weekend. I attached all 5 screenshots to a message. I sent it to the family group chat with a simple message. The owner decided she'd rather spend Thanksgiving with her children. Peaceful enough for you? My phone started ringing within 30 seconds. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted, for 3 years, you've been paying me $4,500 per weekend to stay at my lake house. I bought it with the money I earned while you all thought I was struggling. I renovated it. I furnished it. Every compliment you gave about the kitchen remodel. I chose those countertops. The dock you love. I paid for that repair. And now you've decided my children, your grandchildren, your niece and nephew, aren't good enough to stay there. So neither are you. Refunds being processed. Find somewhere else for your peaceful holiday. The phone calls came in rapid succession. I silenced them all. Jennifer texted, "This is insane. You've been lying to us for 3 years." Mom called again. Then Dad. Then both of them together on a conference call I declined. Mark's message was different. Sarah, we need to talk about this. This doesn't make sense. You own that house. I replied only to Mark. Yes. I've owned it since before you started renting it. Check the property records if you don't believe me. Purchased June 2019. Emma came into the kitchen. Mommy, can we have mac and cheese for dinner? Absolutely, sweetie. I put my phone face down on the counter and focused on my kids. The messages continued throughout the evening. Dad, we need to discuss this property situation. If you own that house, we've essentially been paying you rent without knowing. This is deceitful. I want a full accounting of every dollar we've paid you over the past 3 years. This could be considered fraud. Jennifer, you let us compliment your house without saying anything? That's psychotic behavior, Sarah. We stood in your kitchen and talked about how nice the owner kept it and you just smiled. What is wrong with you? This is beyond manipulative. Mom, I'm calling you tomorrow whether you answer or not. This conversation is happening. I don't care if you own that property or not. Banning your own family from Thanksgiving is cruel. Those are your nieces and nephew too. Mark's kids were looking forward to this trip. Mark's message was the longest. Okay, I'm trying to understand this. You bought the lake house in 2019? That's before you even had Emma. You were working 2 jobs then. You told us you could barely afford your apartment. Where did you get $340,000 plus renovation money? And why wouldn't you tell your own family? We could have helped you with the business. We could have been partners. Instead, you've been secretly collecting rent from us for 3 years? That's $54,000, Sarah. You took $54,000 from your own parents and siblings without telling us it was your property. How is that not theft? I read Mark's message twice. The entitlement was staggering. They'd happily paid that money when they thought it was going to a stranger. But now that they knew it went to me, their struggling daughter and sister, suddenly it was theft? Another message from Jennifer. I just told David about this. He agrees this is insane. We're considering legal action. You can't just secretly profit off your own family like this. And then Dad again. Your mother is very upset. She's been crying for an hour. I hope you're happy with yourself. Over what? Because we asked you to get a babysitter? You're willing to destroy this family over childcare. I gave the kids their bath, read them bedtime stories and tucked them in. Lucas hugged me tight. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, buddy. So much. After they were asleep, I poured myself a glass of wine and finally opened the property management portal again. Tom had left me a note. Client called back twice more demanding to speak with owner. Told him it's not possible. He mentioned getting lawyers involved. Just a heads up. I smiled and typed a response. Let me know if he contacts you again. I'm prepared to handle any legal inquiries. Then I checked the property calendar. Thanksgiving weekend was now blocked as owner use. I made a new reservation, this time under my own name, no charge. 5 days at the lake house with Emma and Lucas. We'd make turkey sandwiches, go on nature walks, feed the ducks at the pond and play games by the fireplace. My phone buzzed one more time. Jennifer, you're really going to stay there? While we have nowhere to go for Thanksgiving. What kind of person are you? I typed my response carefully. I'm the kind of person who worked 2 jobs to buy property while you mocked my cheap clothes. I'm the kind of mother who builds a future for her children while you call them chaos. I'm the kind of daughter who stayed quiet while you all assumed I was failing. And now I'm the kind of property owner who decides her own children are absolutely welcome in her own home. Enjoy your peaceful holiday wherever you end up. My kids and I will be at the lake. I hit send and turned off my phone. The next morning I started packing for our trip. Emma was excited. We're going to the pretty house by the water? Yes, sweetheart. Just you, me and Lucas. We're going to have the best Thanksgiving ever. Will Grandma and Grandpa be there? I knelt down to her level. Not this time, honey. This time it's just us. She smiled and hugged me. Good. I like when it's just us. My phone, still off, sat in my bedroom. I knew there would be more messages, more calls, probably attempts to show up at my house. But for now, I focused on packing swim toys, board games and groceries for our lake house trip. 3 years of silence about owning that property. 3 years of letting them believe I was barely surviving while I built a real estate portfolio worth over $2 million. 3 years of listening to their condescending advice about getting serious about my career. And now one simple boundary. My children are welcome in my home. I zipped up the suitcase and called to the kids. Who wants to go on an adventure? Their excited screams filled the house. That was all the answer I needed. The dinner party was already in full swing when I arrived at my sister's house. Or rather what she called her house. The sprawling 4-bedroom colonial in the prestigious Riverside Oaks development, with its marble countertops and crystal chandeliers, was indeed impressive. The house sat on a corner lot with mature oak trees and a circular driveway, the kind of place that made visitors slow down to admire it. My sister Victoria had been showing it off to the family for 3 years now, hosting elaborate dinner parties and posting endless photos on social media with captions about her successful life and perfect home. I'd been invited as always, with the understanding that I'd help serve and clean up afterward. It had become an unspoken arrangement over the years. I showed up early, helped in the kitchen, made sure everything ran smoothly, and Victoria got to play the perfect hostess while taking all the credit. She'd introduce me to her friends as my sister who helps out, never by name, never with any real acknowledgement of the hours I spent making her events successful. Tonight was a celebration for our parents' 40th anniversary. The dining room table was set for 12 with Victoria's expensive china, the kind she ordered from that boutique in the city. My mother sat at one end, my father at the other, and Victoria held court in the middle, recounting some story about her recent spa weekend. I'd spent the afternoon helping prepare the meal, chopping vegetables and setting the table while Victoria got her hair done. When I finally sat down, the only remaining seat was at the far end next to the kitchen door, close enough to jump up and grab whatever was needed. "Sarah, the wine needs refilling," Victoria said without looking at me. She held up her glass and I stood automatically reaching for the bottle on the sideboard. As I poured, my 11-year-old niece Mallory looked up at me with that expression children get when they're about to repeat something they've heard adults say, something they don't fully understand but know is meant to hurt. "Mom says you're nothing but the maid who cleans our house," Mallory announced to the table. Her voice carried that sing-song quality of childhood cruelty. "She says you're lucky we let you come to family dinners since you're basically just the cleaning lady around here." The conversation stopped. Forks paused midway to mouths. My brother-in-law David developed a sudden interest in his plate. My parents looked uncomfortable but said nothing, which was typical. Victoria didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. She just smirked into her wine glass, taking a slow sip. "Mallory, we don't say those things out loud, remember?" But her tone made it clear she wasn't actually correcting her daughter, just coaching her on when to be cruel openly versus when to be cruel quietly. I stood there with the wine bottle in my hand, watching my sister's satisfied expression. 3 years of this. 3 years of playing the role she'd assigned me, of being the failure sister who'd never quite measured up, who'd scraped by while Victoria married well and lived in luxury. I set the wine bottle down carefully. "Excuse me," I said quietly. I walked to the hall closet where I'd left my purse and coat. "Where are you going?" my mother called. "We haven't even had dessert yet." "I need to leave," I said, slipping on my coat. Victoria laughed, that light, dismissive laugh she'd perfected. So dramatic. Mallory was just being honest. "If you're going to be sensitive about your situation, maybe you shouldn't come to these things." I looked at her for a long moment. She sat there in her designer dress, in her beautiful dining room, surrounded by the family she'd gathered to celebrate herself. And she had no idea. None of them did. "You're right," I said. "I probably shouldn't." I left without another word, walking to my car while I could hear Victoria inside making some joke about me being too sensitive, about how some people just can't handle the truth about their station in life. The drive home took 20 minutes. I lived in a modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, nothing flashy or impressive. I'd chosen it specifically because it didn't draw attention. The last thing I wanted was questions about where my money came from or why I wasn't living in something more extravagant. Once inside, I made myself a cup of tea and opened my laptop. I navigated to my secure file storage and pulled up the folder labeled Riverside Oaks Property. Inside were all the documents from the purchase 3 years ago. The title deed with my name clearly listed as sole owner, the mortgage paperwork showing I'd paid cash. No financing needed. The property tax records I'd been paying quarterly, the homeowner's insurance policy in my name. All of it was irrefutable proof of ownership. I'd bought the house in cash for $1.4 million using a portion of the proceeds from selling my medical supply company. Victoria had no idea. She thought the house belonged to David's parents, that they were letting her and David live there as a generous gift. That's what I'd told her through the real estate attorney who handled everything discreetly, setting up the arrangement through a property management LLC to keep my name off anything Victoria might see. In reality, Victoria and David had been my tenants for 3 years, paying $1,200 a month in what they thought was a contribution to the in-laws for property taxes and maintenance. They had no idea they were paying me, or that the actual market rent for a house like that was closer to $5,000 a month. I'd set it up this way deliberately after selling my company. I'd watched Victoria struggle for years, working retail jobs she considered beneath her, married to David who made decent money but nothing spectacular. When they'd complained about not being able to afford a nice house, not being able to give Mallory the life she deserved, I'd arranged for them to stay in David's parents' house, at a severely reduced rate. I'd done it because I thought maybe if Victoria felt secure, if she had the life she'd always wanted, she might finally stop treating me like I was less than her. Maybe the cruelty would stop if she didn't feel like she had to compete with me anymore. But it hadn't stopped. If anything, it had gotten worse. Having the house had just given her a stage to perform her superiority on, a backdrop for her endless commentary about my failures and her successes. I attached the property deed, the title insurance, and the lease agreement to an email. In the message field I typed, Victoria. Attached are the documents showing the actual ownership of the house at 847 Riverside Oaks Drive. You'll note that I purchased this property in my name 3 years ago. You and David have been my tenants, though I led you to believe otherwise. Effective immediately, I am terminating your lease agreement. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Regards, your cleaning lady, Sarah. I hit send at 8:47 in the evening. Then I forwarded copies to my real estate attorney Marcus Chin with instructions to prepare formal eviction paperwork. I texted him, need this processed first thing Monday morning. No delays. His response came within 5 minutes. We'll handle personally. I'll have the sheriff's office serve papers by Tuesday. I poured another cup of tea and waited. The first call came at 11:53. Victoria. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. By midnight I had 17 missed calls from her, 9 from David and 3 from my mother. The voicemails started apologetic. Sarah, there must be some mistake with these documents. Please call me back so we can clear this up. I'm sure there's a simple explanation. Then confused. I don't understand these documents. David's parents bought this house for us. There has to be an error in the county records or something. Maybe someone stole your identity? We need to figure this out together. Then desperate. Sarah, please. We need to talk about this. We can't just leave. Where would we go? Mallory's school is here. All her friends are here. This is our home. We've lived here for 3 years. Please just call me back and we can work something out. Then angry. This is insane. You can't just kick us out of our home like this. We have rights as tenants. I'm calling a lawyer first thing Monday morning. This is harassment and I won't stand for it. You're going to regret this. Then back to desperate. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about what Mallory said. She's just a child. She didn't understand what she was saying. Please don't punish her for something I said in private. Please. I'm begging you. I listened to each one calmly, sipping my tea, and deleted them. At 1 in the morning my mother called. I answered. Sarah, what is going on? Victoria is hysterical. She's saying you're evicting her. That's correct, I said. I own the house she's living in. I'm terminating the lease. You own it? How? Victoria said David's parents bought it for them. Victoria was misinformed. I bought it 3 years ago when I sold my company. I've been letting her and David live there at a significantly reduced rate. But I've decided I no longer want to be their landlord. Your company? What company? I smiled even though she couldn't see me. The medical supply company I started 8 years ago. We manufactured sterile surgical equipment. I sold it to a healthcare conglomerate for $47 million. After taxes and paying off investors, I cleared about $32 million. The house was a small purchase in comparison. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. You never told us, she finally said. You never asked. Everyone assumed I was still working as a medical receptionist because that's what I was doing when I started the company as a side project. I kept that job for 5 years while building the business. By the time I sold it, the assumption was so ingrained that I saw no reason to correct it. But Victoria, she talks about you like I'm the cleaning lady? Yes, I know. I've heard it for 3 years. Tonight her daughter repeated it at the dinner table, and Victoria found it amusing rather than horrifying. So I've decided I'm done subsidizing the lifestyle that allows her to feel superior to me. Sarah, she didn't mean. She meant exactly what she said, Mom. And now she can find somewhere else to say it. I hung up and turned off my phone. Monday morning, Marcus called me from his office. The paperwork is ready. Sheriff's deputy will serve it tomorrow morning at 8. I've also prepared a formal notice that their lease agreement is terminated due to your decision to reclaim the property for personal use. Perfectly legal. They have 30 days. Thank you, Marcus. I have to ask, Sarah. This is your sister. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. Tuesday morning, I turn my phone back on. 247 missed calls. 73 voicemails. Countless text messages. At 8:15, Marcus texted, "Papers served. Your sister's attorney called me already. I've informed him that everything is legal and proper. He's got nothing." I allowed myself a small smile. The family group chat, which I'd been removed from 3 years ago because Victoria said I didn't need to be involved in family planning since I never hosted anything, suddenly had me re-added. Messages flooded in. My cousin Jennifer, is it true you own Victoria's house? My Aunt Patricia, Victoria is saying you're making up documents? My brother Thomas, can someone explain what's happening? I typed one message. I purchased the property at 847 Riverside Oaks Drive 3 years ago for $1.4 million cash. Victoria and David have been my tenants at a reduced rate. I am reclaiming my property. Anyone with questions can contact my attorney, Marcus Chin at Chin and Associates. Then I muted the chat. Victoria's lawyer tried to fight it. He called Marcus claiming tenant rights, claiming unfair eviction, claiming Victoria had made improvements to the property that gave her equity. Marcus shut down each argument with documentation. Every repair had been approved and paid for by me through the property management company I'd hired. Every modification had been outlined in the lease agreement Victoria had signed without reading carefully, too excited about living in a free luxury house to examine the fine print. The 30 days crawled by. I received one letter from Victoria, delivered by certified mail. In it, she claimed this was all a misunderstanding, that she'd never meant to hurt me, that Mallory was just a child who didn't understand what she was saying. She begged me to reconsider. I didn't respond. On day 28, Victoria and David moved out. I drove by the house that evening and saw the moving truck in the driveway. Victoria stood on the lawn watching workers carry out furniture. She looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. She saw my car and walked toward it. I rolled down the window. "I hope you're happy," she said. Her eyes were red from crying. "You've destroyed my family. Mallory had to change schools. David's commute is now 90 minutes. We're living in a rental apartment that costs more than we were paying you in a neighborhood that's not even safe. You have David's income," I said calmly. "You'll figure it out. People do. Why are you doing this to me?" I looked at her for a long moment. "Because you called me your cleaning lady, Victoria. You let your daughter think I was less than you. And when I gave you everything you wanted, you used it as a platform to humiliate me. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm simply taking back what was mine. I didn't mean it that way." "Yes, you did. You meant it exactly that way. And now you know what it feels like when the person you look down on turns out to be the person you depend on." I rolled up the window and drove away. A week later, I listed the property for sale. It sold in 3 days for $1.7 million. I never told my family what I did with the profit. Some things are better kept private. But I did buy myself a new house. Smaller than the Riverside Oaks property, but in an even better neighborhood. And I made sure everyone knew it was mine. The living room was packed with family. Party morning at my parents' house always drew a crowd, but this year felt different. Mom had been building up the big surprise for weeks, dropping hints about magical gifts and unforgettable experiences during our weekly phone calls. She'd mentioned it at Thanksgiving, again at my nephew's birthday party, and every time I'd picked up the phone since. My daughter Emma sat on the floor near the tree, her eyes bright with 7-year-old excitement. She'd worn her favorite red dress, the one with the white collar, and had barely slept the night before. She loved parties at Grandma and Grandpa's house, even though I'd noticed over the years how differently they treated her compared to Jessica's children. "Gather around, everyone," Mom announced, pulling out a stack of envelopes from behind the couch. "Your grandfather and I have something very special this year." Dad stood beside her, grinning with the kind of pride I remembered from Jessica's high school graduation, the one where I'd sat in the audience watching them beam. "We've been planning this for months. Every grandchild is getting an incredible gift." My sister Jessica bounced on the couch, her 3 kids already reaching for the envelopes. Her friend Diane sat beside her with her 2 children, who'd apparently been invited to share in whatever this was. I found that odd, but I'd learned not to question my parents' choices when it came to family gatherings. "We're sending all the grandchildren to Disney World," Mom declared. The room erupted in squeals and applause. 5-day passes, hotel included. This spring break. One by one, Mom handed out envelopes. Jessica's oldest son, Matthew, got his first. "Oh, Matthew, you're going to love Space Mountain," Mom gushed, hugging him tight. Then her daughter, Sophie. "Sophie, darling, we made sure to get the princess breakfast reservation." Then her youngest, Tyler. "Tyler, buddy, your grandpa already downloaded the Disney app so you can plan everything." Each envelope contained tickets, hotel confirmations, and spending money. The kids screamed with joy, already planning what rides they'd go on first. Jessica pulled out her phone, immediately texting the news to her husband. Emma scooted closer, her small hand gripping my sleeve. I could feel her anticipation radiating off her in waves. She talked about Disney World for 2 years, ever since Sophie had shown her pictures from their last trip, the one my parents had secretly paid for without telling me. Mom moved to Diane's kids next. "And because you're practically family," she said warmly, handing envelopes to Diane's 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter. "We couldn't leave you out. You kids are so well-behaved and we just love having you around." Diane smiled, looking somewhat embarrassed but accepting the envelopes anyway. "That's so generous of you both. The kids will be thrilled." My daughter's face fell slightly, but she maintained her smile. She was next. He had to be next. There were no other children in the room. Mom turned toward us, then looked down at her empty hands. "Oh." She glanced at Dad with an exaggerated expression of surprise. "Oh dear, we ran out." The room went quiet for a heartbeat. "We ran out of tickets," Mom repeated, looking at Emma with a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We must have miscounted." Emma's smile disappeared. Her hand tightened on my sleeve. "But don't worry," Dad added quickly. "I'm sure you'll have fun doing something else during spring break. Maybe your mom can take you to the local park or something." Jessica's kids were already comparing their envelopes, too excited to notice the tension. Diane had the decency to look uncomfortable, but she said nothing. "Actually," Jessica chimed in, "this worked out perfectly. The rest of us were worried about having an odd number anyway. 7 kids would have made the room arrangements complicated." "Exactly," Mom agreed, looking relieved. "Sometimes these things just work out for the best." I looked down at Emma. Her eyes were wet, but she was biting her lip, trying not to cry in front of everyone. My chest tightened with a familiar ache. The same feeling I'd carried since childhood, watching Mom give Jessica the bigger gifts, the new clothes, the graduation party I never got. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "Why?" she whispered back. "Why don't they want me to come?" I had no answer that wouldn't break her heart further. Mom was already moving on, asking Jessica about dates and flights. Dad was showing Matthew pictures of the hotel pool on his phone. Diane's kids were jumping on the couch and nobody told them to stop. I pulled out my phone, keeping my expression neutral. My hands were steady as I opened my email and found the confirmation from Royal Caribbean, the retirement cruise I'd booked for my parents 6 months ago. 21 days through the Mediterranean, departing in 3 weeks. Presidential suite. All excursions included. Total cost, $42,000. I clicked on the booking reference, navigated to the cancellation page and selected Cancel Entire Reservation. The confirmation popped up immediately. Cancellation processed. Refund issued to my account within 7 business days. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and wrapped my arm around Emma. "Want to go get some hot chocolate?" I asked softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. As we stood to leave, Dad's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Royal Caribbean. That's odd. He answered, walking toward the kitchen. Hello? Yes, this is Robert Martinez. I guided Emma toward the hallway, but his voice rose, stopping us. What do you mean canceled? We didn't cancel anything. Pause. No, I certainly did not request a cancellation. Another pause, longer this time. What do you mean we never paid for it? Someone else booked it? Who? Mom appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression shifting from confused to alarmed. I don't understand, Dad said into the phone. Just reinstate the booking. Use our card. Pause. What do you mean it's not available anymore? The presidential suite was reserved months ago. He pulled the phone away from his ear, staring at it in disbelief. They said someone named Sarah Martinez booked and paid for our entire cruise as a gift. And that the same person just canceled it 20 minutes ago. Every head in the room turned toward me. I kept my expression calm, reaching down to take Emma's hand. Sarah. Mom's voice was sharp. What is he talking about? I booked a retirement cruise for you, I said quietly. As a surprise for your 35th anniversary next month. I canceled it just now. You canceled a $42,000 cruise? Jessica stood up, her voice incredulous. Are you insane? Why would you do that? Mom demanded. I looked at Emma, then back at my parents. Because my daughter just watched you give Disney tickets to everyone except her, including children who aren't even family. And I realized I was tired. Tired of what? Dad set his phone down, his face reddening. Tired of funding your retirement while you treat my daughter like she doesn't exist. The room went silent. Even the kids stopped talking, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Mom laughed, but it sounded forced. Funding our retirement? We've been saving for decades. Your father worked 30 years at the plant. Have you? I pulled out my phone again, opening my banking app. I navigated to the payment history screen and turned it toward them. Should I call the mortgage company? The one where I've been making your house payments for the last 4 years? $3,800 a month. That's $182,400 total. Dad's face went pale. He sat down heavily on the arm of the couch. Or maybe I should call Toyota about the 2 car leases in my name, the ones you're driving? That's another $1,200 a month combined. $57,600 over 4 years. Sarah, wait, Mom started, reaching toward me. The health insurance premiums I've been covering since you both retired early at 58? That's $2,000 a month for both of you. $96,000. The country club membership you use 3 times a week? $18,000 annually. The lawn service that comes every week? The bi-weekly cleaning service that deep cleans this entire house. I scrolled through my payment records, my voice steady. Want to know the total? Over 4 years, I've paid $437,000 to maintain your lifestyle. Jessica sat down slowly. You've been paying for all of that? Every month for 4 years. Since I sold my first company. You all thought I was still working as a dental hygienist because I never corrected you. I kept my voice level, matter of fact. I actually sold my dental software startup to a major healthcare corporation for $18 million. The software that streamlines patient records and billing. I bought 2 more companies after that, merged them, and sold the combined entity last year for another $43 million. I'm doing fine. Mom's mouth opened and closed. She gripped the back of the couch for support. You never said anything. You never asked. You just assumed I was still struggling. The daughter who barely made it through community college while Jessica went to the university you paid for. The one who got a full-ride scholarship you still talk about at every family dinner. I paused, looking at each of them. But I kept paying your bills anyway because I thought family was supposed to help family. I thought maybe if I did enough, gave enough, you'd eventually see me the way you see Jessica. That's not fair, Jessica protested weakly. We've always loved you. Isn't it? When was the last time you invited Emma to Sophie's birthday party? Or included her in your family photos? The ones you post all over social media with captions about your perfect family. I looked at my sister directly. I pay your car insurance too, by the way. $1,400 a month for 3 vehicles. And your kids' private school tuition. Montessori Academy costs $45,000 a year per child. That's $135,000 annually. Did you think Mom and Dad were covering that on Dad's plant pension? Jessica's face drained of color. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. That's the mortgage company confirming I've removed myself as the account holder. You'll get a notice in a few days about the first payment being due. It's $3,800 a month if you've forgotten. Sarah, please, Dad said. We can talk about this. We could have talked about it before you humiliated my daughter on party morning. I picked up Emma, who wrapped her arms around my neck. Before you gave tickets to Diane's kids but not your own granddaughter. We didn't have enough, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. You had 7 envelopes. You gave away 7 sets of tickets. You just didn't want Emma to have one. I headed toward the door. I'm done pretending that's okay. Where are you going? Jessica stood up. Home. And then Emma and I are going to book our own trip to Disney World. First-class flights. Deluxe resort. Park hopper passes. Just the 2 of us. I opened the front door. Unlike some people, I actually enjoy spending time with my daughter. Sarah, we can fix this, Dad called out. I turned back one last time. The health insurance lapses at the end of this month. The club membership cancels tomorrow. The cleaning service is already notified. You'll have to figure out the rest yourselves. You're being vindictive, Jessica said. No. I'm being done. I looked at Emma, who was watching me with wide eyes. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, baby. And when they do, you believe them. Mom rushed toward us. We'll include Emma in the Disney trip. We'll order more tickets. That's not the point anymore. I shifted Emma's weight in my arms. The point is you had to be forced. You had to lose something before you even considered including your own granddaughter. That tells me everything I need to know. As we walked to the car, I could hear raised voices inside the house. Dad was on the phone again, probably trying to understand how much money they actually owed each month. Mom was crying. Jessica was yelling about her kids' tuition. I buckled Emma into her car seat. She looked up at me with those serious eyes that were too old for 7. Mommy? Are Grandma and Grandpa going to be mad at us forever? Maybe, I said honestly. But that's their choice, not ours. Are we really going to Disney World? Just us. We absolutely are. Would you like to invite some of your friends from school? Her face lit up. Really? Really? We'll take 4 of your friends and their parents. My treat. It'll be way more fun than going with people who don't want you there. She thought for a moment. Can we get the ears? The ones with the sparkles. Every single pair you want. As I drove away, my phone started ringing. First Dad, then Mom, then Jessica. I let them all go to voicemail. Emma turned on her playlist and we sang along to her favorite songs, her voice getting stronger with each mile we put between ourselves and that house. 4 years of mortgage payments. 4 years of car leases, insurance, and country club memberships. 4 years of Jessica's kids' tuition and my parents' comfortable retirement. Not once had they said thank you because they never knew. And maybe that was partly my fault for never telling them. But watching them deliberately exclude my daughter, watching them hand tickets to virtual strangers while Emma stood there empty-handed, that clarified everything. Money wasn't the issue. It never had been. The issue was that they'd never seen Emma as equal to Jessica's children, and they'd never seen me as equal to Jessica. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Mom's having a panic attack about the mortgage. How could you do this? I didn't respond. Instead, I called the travel agent I'd used for the cruise. Hi, this is Sarah Martinez. I'd like to book a Disney World vacation. 10 people total. Your best package. Money's no object. In the rearview mirror, I could see Emma smiling, her earlier tears forgotten. She was already planning which rides to go on first, which princesses she wanted to meet. And for the first time in 4 years I felt lighter. Not because I'd hurt my parents or Jessica, but because I'd finally stopped carrying the weight of trying to buy their love and respect. Some prices are just too high to pay. Maya walked through our apartment door at 7:30 with purple bruises on her shins. She was still wearing her white Sunday dress, now wrinkled and dirty. Mommy, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Uncle Tom pushed me really hard. I knelt down and examined her legs. 2 distinct bruises, fresh and angry looking. Tell me exactly what happened, sweetheart. Everyone was taking the big family picture outside. I was standing with Grandma and Aunt Lisa. Then Uncle Tom said maids and their kids don't belong in family photos. He pushed me away and I fell on the stone steps. I felt something cold settle in my chest, but I kept my voice gentle. Did anyone help you up? Aunt Lisa looked away. Grandma said I should go play in the garden until the adults were done. Maya's bottom lip trembled. They all just kept smiling for the camera like nothing happened. I hugged her carefully, avoiding the bruises. Go wash up and put on your pajamas. I'll make you some hot chocolate. While Maya was in the bathroom, I stood at our kitchen window looking out at the city lights. Our modest two-bedroom apartment was clean and comfortable, but it was worlds away from the sprawling estate where my brother Tom now lived. The estate that had belonged to our parents. The estate everyone assumed Tom controlled. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Evening, Mrs. Peterson," came the voice of Harold Blackwood, the family attorney who'd handled my parents' affairs for 30 years. "This is unexpected. Harold, I need you to prepare documentation. Full documentation of the family trust structure. I want everything ready by tomorrow morning." There was a pause. "Are you sure? Once this becomes public knowledge." "Tomorrow morning," I repeated. 9 a.m. I'll meet you at the estate." After Maya fell asleep, I sat at our small dining table with a cup of tea, thinking about how we'd gotten here. My parents had died in a car accident 6 years ago when Maya was just 2. The funeral had been a blur, but I remembered Tom's face when the will was read. His shock, his anger, his disbelief that everything had been placed in an irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee. The estate worth approximately $42 million. The investment properties generating $2 million annually. The stock portfolio. The art collection. All of it controlled by me with one specific instruction. Provide Tom with a comfortable living allowance as long as he treated the family with respect and dignity. I'd been 26 then, fresh out of graduate school, and I'd made a decision. I would let Tom live at the estate. Let him think he was in charge. Let him host the family gatherings and play the patriarch. I would live quietly, work my museum curator job, raise my daughter, and stay out of his way. As long as he was decent to people, I saw no reason to humiliate him publicly. But pushing my child down stone steps and calling her a maid's daughter? That crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The next morning, I dropped Maya at school early and drove the 40 minutes to the estate. The iron gates were already open for the gardeners. I parked near the service entrance and walked around to the main house. Tom was having breakfast on the terrace, reading the financial section. My sister-in-law Patricia was beside him, scrolling through her phone. Through the French doors, I saw my Aunt Margaret in the sitting room, along with Tom's business partner David. I walked onto the terrace. Tom looked up, surprised. "Sarah? What are you doing here on a Monday morning? Don't you have work?" "We need to talk," I said quietly. "All of you. Living room. Now." Patricia laughed. "Excuse me? You can't just barge in here and start giving orders." "Living room," I repeated. "Harold Blackwood is arriving in 10 minutes with documentation you'll all want to see." Tom's face reddened. "Harold, why would you contact our family attorney without discussing it with me first?" I didn't answer, just walked inside. They followed, confused and irritated. Aunt Margaret stood when we entered. "Sarah, dear, what's this about? Tom mentioned you were upset about some playground incident yesterday." "Playground incident?" I turned to face her. "Maya has bruises from being pushed down stone steps. Because Tom decided she wasn't worthy of being in a family photograph." Tom waved his hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic. I barely touched her. She was standing in the wrong spot, blocking Aunt Margaret. I just guided her aside." "You kicked her," I said, my voice level. "And told her maids don't belong in pictures." Patricia rolled her eyes. "Oh please. Tom told me about this. Your daughter was being disruptive, running around during a formal photo. He simply redirected her." "She was standing still next to her grandmother," I said. "She wasn't running anywhere." The doorbell rang. I went to answer it myself. Harold Blackwood stood there with his briefcase, looking somber in his gray suit. "Harold," I said. "Thank you for coming." Tom appeared behind me. "Harold, I don't know what Sarah's told you, but this is highly irregular." "Mr. Peterson," Harold said formally. "I'm here at the request of the trustee. Shall we sit down?" We gathered in the living room. I'd spent countless childhood hours in this room, doing homework on that same oriental rug while my mother played piano. Now it felt like enemy territory. Harold opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I've been instructed to review the structure of the family trust established by Robert and Elizabeth Peterson 6 years ago. Tom leaned forward. Harold, I appreciate Sarah wanting to understand family finances, but surely this could have been handled privately. Thomas, please let me finish. Harold's tone was sharp. He'd known Tom since he was a child and had no patience for his posturing. The Peterson Family Trust, valued at approximately $42 million, includes this estate, 7 residential investment properties, a stock portfolio and various other assets. The trust generates approximately $2.1 million in annual income. Patricia's eyes gleamed. She loved when Tom talked about his properties and investments at dinner parties. Harold continued, Thomas, you currently receive an annual allowance of $300,000 from this trust, plus free residence at this estate, including all maintenance, staff and operational costs, which total approximately $400,000 annually. Tom nodded as if this confirmed his importance. However, Harold said, pulling out another document, you are not the trustee of this estate. You never have been. The sole trustee with complete control over all assets and distributions is Sarah Peterson. The room went absolutely silent. Patricia spoke first. That's ridiculous. Sarah lives in a tiny apartment downtown. She works at a museum. She controlled $42 million. She does control it, Harold said simply. And she has since your in-laws passed away. Every dollar Thomas receives, every expense paid for this estate, every investment decision has been authorized by Sarah for the past 6 years. Tom's face had gone pale. That can't be right. Dad wouldn't. Your father's will was very specific, Harold interrupted. He was concerned about your judgment regarding money. He and your mother discussed this at length before the accident. They wanted to ensure the family wealth was preserved and used responsibly. I finally spoke. I've let you live here, Tom. I've approved your allowance without question. I've stayed out of your way and let you play the role of family patriarch because I thought it made you happy. I never wanted to humiliate you. But you pushed my daughter down the stairs, I continued, my voice steady. You called her a maid's child. You taught your family to look down on us because we don't live in a mansion. Aunt Margaret's hand went to her mouth. Sarah, I didn't know. But Tom always said he was managing everything. He manages nothing, I said. Harold, please explain the terms regarding Tom's allowance. Harold nodded. The trust document specifies that Thomas receives his allowance and residence, contingent upon treating all family members with dignity and respect. The trustee has sole discretion to determine if this condition is being met. Tom stood up abruptly. You can't cut me off over a misunderstanding with a child. I can, I said quietly. And I am. Effective immediately, your allowance is suspended. You have 60 days to vacate the estate. This is my home. Tom shouted. You can't just throw me out. It's not your home. It never was. It belongs to the trust and I control the trust. I turned to Harold. What about the investment properties? Harold flipped through his papers. Thomas and Patricia currently live rent-free in the primary estate. However, Thomas has been telling friends and business associates that he owns the 7 investment properties personally. He's been using them as collateral for business loans. My eyes narrowed. He's been what? He can't actually borrow against them since he doesn't own them, Harold explained. But he's been representing to potential investors that he has $7 million in real estate assets backing his ventures. Patricia stood up. This is insane. Tom, tell them this is all a mistake. Sit down, Patricia, I said, and something in my voice made her sit. I turned to David, Tom's business partner, who'd been silent this whole time. David, you invested in Tom's development project last year, the one he said was backed by family properties. How much? David looked sick. $200,000. He said the properties were worth $7 million and the project couldn't fail. The project already has failed, I said. I reviewed the accounts last night. Tom has lost everything you invested, plus another $300,000 of his allowance money. He was planning to use next quarter's allowance to cover the losses before you found out. Tom sank back into his chair, all the bluster gone from his face. I looked around the room at these people who'd spent years looking down on me and my daughter. Here's what's going to happen. Tom, you'll move out within 60 days. Your allowance is reduced to $100,000 annually, and you'll be required to submit quarterly reports on how it's spent. If you make any attempt to misrepresent your financial situation again, it drops to zero. Patricia started crying. Where are we supposed to live? I don't particularly care, I said. But I'll give you 3 months of your current allowance to help with the transition. I turned to Aunt Margaret. You've been living in the guest house rent-free. That can continue, but you'll need to apologize to Maya. In person. And mean it. She nodded quickly. Of course. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have helped her yesterday. Yes, you should have. I looked at Harold. Transfer management of the estate to the property management company we discussed. I want a full inventory and appraisal. And I want security updated. New codes, new locks. Already in progress, Harold said. I picked up my purse. I need to get to work. Harold, send the full documentation to my office this afternoon. Tom, Patricia, I'll have the moving timeline sent to you by the end of the week. Tom finally found his voice. Sarah, please. I'm sorry about Maya. I was stressed, I wasn't thinking. You weren't thinking about how a 42-year-old man shouldn't physically push an 8-year-old child? Or weren't thinking about how you've been committing fraud with properties you don't own? He had no answer. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Tom? That family photo from yesterday. I want a copy. Frame it nicely. It'll be a good reminder of the last time you played Lord of the Manor. I drove back to the city, my hands steady on the wheel. That evening I picked up Maya from school. She was quieter than usual. How are your legs, sweetheart? I asked. They still hurt a little, she admitted. Mommy, are we in trouble? Uncle Tom seemed really mad yesterday. No, baby. We're not in trouble. But Uncle Tom is going to be moving to a different house soon. Why? I thought about how to explain this to an 8-year-old. Because the big house actually belongs to us, not to him. And when people live in someone else's house, they need to be kind and respectful. Uncle Tom forgot that. She was quiet for a moment. Does this mean we have to move there? Would you want to? She shook her head vigorously. I like our apartment. I like my school. I like that I can walk to the library. I smiled. Then we'll stay right where we are. 3 weeks later, Harold called with updates. Tom and Patricia had moved to a suburban condo. The estate appraised at $46 million. David had filed a lawsuit against Tom for investment fraud. Aunt Margaret had apologized sincerely to Maya with flowers and books. Thomas has requested a meeting to apologize, Harold said. No, I said immediately. If he's truly sorry, he can write Maya a letter explaining why what he did was wrong. If it's sincere, I'll consider supervised visits at neutral locations. That night I tucked Maya into bed and she looked up at me. Mommy, were Grandma and Grandpa rich? They were comfortable. They worked hard and saved their money. And they left it to you? They left it in a trust for our whole family. My job is to take care of it and use it wisely. Like how I take care of Mr. Whiskers? She gestured to her stuffed cat. I smiled. Exactly like that. Then you did a good job. Because Uncle Tom wasn't being wise when he pushed me. I kissed her forehead and turned out the light, thinking about my parents. They'd known Tom's weaknesses. They'd structured everything to protect the family wealth while still providing for him. They'd trusted me to be responsible. For 6 years I'd done that quietly. But they'd also raised me to protect the vulnerable and stand up against bullies. The estate would be managed professionally now. Tom would learn to live within his means. And Maya would grow up knowing that true power isn't about mansions or family photos. It's about knowing who you are, what you control, and when to stay quiet and when to speak up. And sometimes, it's about making sure people who hurt children understand there are always consequences.